really about our agenda. It's not about our perspective. It's how we interact with that person to really unlock their truest potential. And, coaching, I've always been in sports all my life. And so watching somebody that can develop the skill set of somebody else and practice with them and see the potential of that person beyond what even the athlete does, I think happens in our business every single day.
Welcome to Dental Momentum, the podcast dedicated to lively discussions on business and financial strategies tailored for dental business owners. At Duckett Ladd, we're committed to transforming your business journey and supporting you at every stage. Join us as we delve into the keys to long-term practice success, from cutting-edge accounting and strategic tax planning to personalized business strategies. Together, let's propel your dental practice forward with unstoppable momentum.
Man, Bill, I absolutely love meeting new entrepreneurs every single day. Entrepreneurs are just fun to talk to, right? They just operate differently. But I don't know if I can... Now the picture in the dictionary of an entrepreneur, I think, is the guest that we just got off of. I mean, just deep down, entrepreneur.
She's one of the best at finding gaps in the marketplace and building out incredible products to service them.
Just crazy about her. Well, and the business acumen that she has too is just unreal. I mean, she understands business principles in and out, how to help people, how to make money, and how to scale things. It's just truly remarkable.
And I think that was one of my biggest takeaways. And I think people are going to love this one because there's actually some parental advice in there that's really solid. She was exposed to a growth mindset at such a young age, and the conversation she had with her family growing up, it's amazing. And it's no wonder that she is who she is. And I think it's a great opportunity as parents to understand how you can build really awesome foundational growth mindsets in your kids. And I loved it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So you guys are going to really enjoy this one. This is our interview with Jennifer Tyson with Fortune Management and TruBlu. Enjoy, guys. All right, Jen. So the first time I met you via Zoom, right? I think Bill was on that conversation as well. And I think the big question is like, Jen, what do you do in dentistry, right? And you just rattled off all these different like businesses or basically you had these businesses with solutions to problems that you found in dentistry, right? And I remember getting off the call and being like, holy cow, like she is the most entrepreneurial spirited woman I've ever met. Like she's just constantly entrepreneur. I mean, finding issues and stuff. Like, where's that come from, Jen? Like where does that come from?
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate that question and I appreciate the compliment. It really comes from my passion for helping other people. And when you're so committed to helping other people, you be very solution oriented. You start to hear people's struggles and stories, and you start to think of your background and say, gosh, I could help with that. And that really, it started way back in my early childhood, where I saw my father be a very successful entrepreneur, but he was also in businesses that were retail businesses. And he always told me and my brother growing up, he said, whatever you do something that you're very passionate about, do something that helps other people, and that you don't live on the margin in between of buying and selling. And that really stuck with me ever since, God, I was probably 8 years old. I could remember him telling me that. And at the time, I don't know that it actually resonated. I'm like, what is the margin? What is living in between? What does that mean? But as I got to grow up and started to learn more about business and sales especially, there's a lot of people that are in sales professions that really, that's all it is. They're the middleman. They buy and sell and live on the margin in between. And there's a lot of purpose to those professions as long as you have that interaction of people. And that's what I really was always drawn to as a very young business person, is I loved people. And I actually thought I wanted to be a dentist at the very beginning.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had such an amazing dental experience as a kid that I'm like, this would be a great living. And I was fortunate enough to actually try it out. And as the age of 15, I was working in a dental office and from my childhood dentist. And I loved everything about it, but felt a little too confined into the space of an oral cavity. And so then I learned more about the business of dentistry, and that's where I really just fell in love with uh, dental as a whole, but also connecting patients with the right dentist and how people viewed dentistry. I thought it was really, there was a misconception out there. There probably still is a lot of misconceptions out there. But the power behind dentistry and healthcare providers and the impact that they have on individuals was really enlightening to me.
So, Jen, in those early years, how did you get to know the business of dentistry? What was your exposure there that allowed you to see how it operated?
Yeah, so I mentioned my father and how early on he was an entrepreneur, and around probably his late 30s, early 40s, he made a career change to find more purposeful work. And I think it was he had picked up an Awaken the Giant Within book by Tony Robbins, and went down this pursuit of becoming an executive coach in
Yeah.
business. And Tony Robbins actually talked to him and said, "Hey, I've got this other company out there called Fortune Practice Management, and I think you'd be really good at it." And he said, "I know nothing about dentistry. And my mom worked for a cardiology office. That was about as close as we knew in a healthcare setting." And he goes, "They don't necessarily need the clinical skill set. They need to know the business side." And he goes,
Yeah.
"That's what you really excel in." And so from ever since I was probably 10, 11 years old, I started being exposed to the world of dental. Was sitting in the back of seminar rooms after school and was meeting dentists, meeting all the team members, learning the ins and outs of, what a pro fee was, what perio maintenance was. And, an odd thing for a middle
Not your typical after school, right?
It's
Sit
like
through, right?
you got an MBA at 12 is what you did, Jen.
Exactly. And, I really do believe in the power of nurture and the environment that you're in. And I was just so blessed, and I'm so grateful for some of the people that I got to meet. Amazing, public speakers, but also all centered around personal development. And, that's something that I just took for granted, thinking that everybody was raised that way.
Yeah.
Did the fire walk at age 13 and just, thought that was normal of, breaking down barriers and addressing limiting beliefs. And so definitely I find myself a product of my upbringing for sure. And just so grateful for the people that I've met along the way. But it opened my eyes at a very young age as to what was possible. And that's really where the dental niche came in. As I just, even before my father had the role with Fortune, though, I did want to become a dentist. And then that just really spurred it. And I went through my college years. I did my major in marketing and a minor in communications. So I loved being able to match patients with the right practice, looking at how businesses marketed and attracted their right clientele. And so then after college, I actually took on Fortune as a client. And that really started my career within Fortune. And I found myself doing everything but the marketing. And that was 15 years ago.
So at the beginning, did you start marketing? Were you working with dental practices on their marketing and then picked up Fortune and then went in there? Is that how
I
it
was,
worked?
yeah. This was like when Facebook had just come out and they were starting to do,
Those are the good old days right there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so coming in as a fresh college kid, these dentists are like, "I don't know, I hardly have a website. How do I do all this other stuff?" And so I would build out their marketing plan for them, and but that's where really I got to understand the difference that set apart a practice that was just doing the bare minimum versus the practices at the very highest level, because marketing for the practices that understood it and took time to invest in their team had a much different ROI on the marketing that we were doing versus somebody that, had just least hired and least trained, put somebody in the front desk, didn't know anything about a patient experience, didn't take the time to really, see the patient for who they were. And so then I realized very quickly that not all practices were created equal. And once I was exposed outside that Fortune umbrella, started realizing what a need practice management and executive coaching was in our industry.
So, Jared, let's put a pin in that part of the journey and let's go backwards because I got to ask a question here, Jen. When you were 12 or 13 and you were exposed to all these personal growth mindsets that you thought was common, I mean, what was it like interacting, as at a young age and all the way into like schooling and then your first job with people who didn't understand that or didn't get it? Was that tough or how did that work?
Yeah, I think as a kid, you have your usuals, right? You get up, you're with your family at the beginning, you go to school, you're with your close group of friends, and then you're on your sports teams or whatever extracurriculars you have, and then you come home and you talk about your day
Yeah.
and the conversations at the dinner table. I knew what our conversations were, and then I'd go to a friend's house and they had different conversations, or it wasn't so there was definitely a discrepancy there. And then I also found that I was able to utilize some of the tools in my education. So I would talk to my teachers about this, and I'd find that I'd have like longer in-depth conversations with my teachers than I did with
Yeah.
some of my own classmates, right? And there was definitely a discrepancy or a gap in the types of things that I was listening to versus, kids my age were listening to. And I was the kid that I'd be at the dinner table with my parents' friends listening to their conversation versus, going outside and playing with the kids and getting into trouble. And, I didn't really realize it then, but looking back on it, it was just, yeah, I'd have really meaningful conversations with adults, and it was interesting. So maturity level, I think that's what a lot of people said about me growing up, was that she was beyond her years. And again, I don't think it kind of goes in one ear and out the other when you're growing up, but looking back on it, it definitely made a lot of sense now.
So you're like meeting these friends and you're like, what, you mean you haven't done the firewalk at 13? Like, I don't understand. I thought everybody did that, right?
Well, I think an important point though is I don't know if I've heard anybody else who was exposed to those things at that young of an age, but I think one thing that Jared and I both learned, because we weren't, and we were kind of got into our corporate jobs and we weren't exposed to it there either until we formed our own firm. And then it's like, once you understand how the power of that personal growth and investing in yourself and trying to change your mindset, it changed everything. But it's never too late, I don't think. Do you agree with that, or how do you feel about that?
I do. I mean, I get to witness transformations every single day in our careers, which is just a tremendous gift to watch somebody that was living a certain way that just kind of had their wake up call, and have decided to make a series of decisions that are going to change their life and has changed their trajectory. And I believe in that wholeheartedly, that if you decide to make, it's up to you to make those decisions. And so, yeah, I mean, even I have conversations, I'm very fortunate enough to have 3 out of my 4 grandparents still living. My grandmother actually turns 97 this
Oh,
Friday.
wow.
I mean, she's just amazing. And every day she wakes up in gratitude. But even, my grandparents, I mean, they're still learning new. I mean, she probably is more in touch with hip hop culture and, who the actors and actresses are than I do, and so
She maybe has more time.
yeah, I don't think learning is ever an expiration date. You constantly are, if you want to, the information is there for you to educate yourself. New mindsets can be harnessed. It's all a choice, all a choice.
So you talk about like Fortune, and you've used the word coach several times so far, right? And I see the 49ers. So we're talking Bill Walsh, not Bill Belichick here, right? But what do you
Exactly.
mean? Like when you go, what does coach mean in the Fortune, or to you, and then in the Fortune mindset?
Yeah. So good question. I mean, because growing up, that was really at the heart. I mean, Fortune's celebrating its 35th anniversary this year,
Wow.
and that was really at the heart of what the distinction was between Fortune being coaching and then somebody else calling themselves a consultant. In today's world, I think they're so interchangeable, which is to me a red flag that they don't really understand the power of what a coach is. Anyone that has a set of skills or knowledge that they want to share with somebody else, that's really consulting, because you're putting on your expectations on somebody else, and maybe they've asked for it, maybe they haven't, but you're sharing your experience with them. A coach, it's not really about our agenda. It's not about our perspective. It's how we interact with that person to really unlock their truest potential. And, coaching, I've always been in sports all my life. And so watching somebody that can develop the skill set of somebody else and practice with them and see the potential of that person beyond what even the athlete does, I think happens in our business every single day. And we all have the ability to be coaches. Some have the skill set though, and the certification to know what levers to pull a little bit easier. But me personally, I've loved human beings. I've loved understanding conflict resolution, right? Every day there's conflicts that arise, and some are small, some are really big, some continue to grow into bigger ones. And being able to understand that person's mindset, being able to connect with that individual and interact with them so that both needs are met. I think we as humans we're very narcissistic, and so we only think from our lens. And if we really look at it to say, hey, I'm going to this person, or I'm communicating because I want to get my needs met, but quality communication is about getting both parties' needs met. And if we all learned that, if we all took the responsibility that, hey, whatever shows up in my life is my responsibility, we definitely have a much different world to live in. So I take that kind of as coaching. That's where we come in, is to just help everybody that we come in contact with to develop that skill set, develop the things that we were not taught as kids. And to understand that being a human being absolutely is about being imperfect. But if we know a little bit more about each other, we can kind of bridge that gap.
Well, let's take these last two threads, the personal growth and into coaching, and let's circle back on your journey. So you're at Fortune and you're doing everything. And presumably at some point you decided that was your path as opposed to the marketing company then, yeah. Jen, or like what was the next step? And I do want to know, like, how did you kind of use that personal growth and the coaching to help build Fortune to what it is today?
Yeah. They say when you truly find your passion that no matter how hard you try to escape it, it pulls you in 10 times harder. Yeah. I would laugh in high school with conversations with my father and thinking there's no way I could, work with him. And, we're so different in so many ways, and we don't see the world, as a high school daughter, it was just, I couldn't even imagine it. Now I couldn't not imagine it. And so that was a really fun journey to be able to work in a family run business. Right. And a lot of dental practices are family run. I mean, that's the reality is, a lot of our successful practices are husband and wife teams, or, the sister, brother working in the practice, and they run like a family. Sometimes they're dysfunctional like a family. They've got different sensitivities. But yeah, so I started on my Fortune journey and just really got a knack for it. Really, the momentum was building for me in that, my passion for dentistry combined with just understanding the walks of life that our dental practices, dental owners go through. The more I studied it, the more I understood it, and the more I was able to create solutions to support them. And so that went on for quite some time. And about 4 years ago, we really started to dig into the consolidation in the market, looking at what our clients were being solicited as far as, wanting to sell their practice. And of course, there's you hear it all the time of, oh, isn't it just so much easier if you just were to do the dentistry, right? And my wake up call was like, what you're asking them to do is not just sell their business, you're asking them to sell their entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration, because at the end of the day, you may be able to give them all the resources that they need, but you fundamentally are making money off their equity. And so we started a platform called TruBlu with the intent of preserving private practice. It was the idea that we got some of our best clients in a room and said, what is keeping you up at night? What are you facing? What is making the decision to be CEO of your business harder today than it was 10, 15 years ago? And man, that list was, a mile long. And we started to pull together what those resources would look like. And we just said, there's got to be a better way out there that we can help provide these services without having to take on their equity at the same time. And that's where TruBlu was born out of. That's where a lot of my different hats come into play, is we saw a need. And, a lot of people ask the question, why me? We said, why not? And we took the leap and have gone and haven't looked back. And we continue to help doctors to get more profitability out of their business, to wake up to some of the political, I think, climate out there in our industry, the different strings attached to things. And I tell a lot of groups, I got two very strong dislikes in my life. One is people getting taken advantage of, which I see a lot of in business. And then the second is I don't like to lose. So,
It's a good trait to have.
I want to create winning solutions, but I love creating winning solutions where we all win, where it's not just one-sided. So I love collaborating with individuals like your guys' selves. And when we've got like-minded individuals working together towards a common goal, watch out. I think there's just some really exciting things on the horizon.
Dive into that a little more, though. Like you said, hey, 4 years ago, we got everybody circled in a room and said, hey, what is holding you back? I think you said from being the CEO of your business. What were they saying? Like, man, if we only had this, and then go back to how we began this with your entrepreneurial spirit, you were hearing that issue. How does TruBlu come in there and help that?
Yeah. So one of the chief complaints was the insurance industry. So we had a long spirited debate around insurance, and I think insurance had a great intent when they got into the dental industry, and it's morphed quite some bit. And that is really hard for a lot of our dental practices to evaluate. I think there's so much. When you don't have the facts in front of you, you're forced to then emotionally create all these justifications. And many of our doctors have a hard time understanding the facts about insurance and how to evaluate if this relationship is working for you or not. And so many of them feel handcuffed to the idea that, it's the prisoner's dilemma. And they think, I can't imagine running my practice without it. I have all these patients, how would I walk away from that? And by no means it's not a one size fits all. Every practice owner, every business owner has to look at the facts and make the decisions for themselves. But that's where there was a miss. There was a complete gap in the education set. And did they have the actual information available to them? And so, partnering up with experts to understand, in their book of business, who are their clients? So we would talk about, there's customers and then there's clients. Your customers are your patients, but your clients are your payers. And when you get your, W-9 statements at the end of the year, those 1099s from insurance companies, those are your clients. That is a client that then possesses so much revenue for you. And separating the two, that you've got to understand where each of them lie. So insurance was a big one. Technology, I think we're fortunate enough to live in an environment where it is moving so fast. But unfortunately, we also know that this is probably the slowest rate of change that we'll ever yet experience again. And there's so much innovation, but then there's so much overlap. And so our doctors were faced with, well, if I do this, then I have to have this. If I do this, then, it's a constant battle of integration. And I only wish we lived in a world where everything spoke to each other and everybody collaborated, right? Because we'd have some really amazing services out there, but it just doesn't work like that. And so many of our offices that were heavy on technology were now requiring a lot more subscription fees and a lot more technology fees. And a lot of their profitability, they'd wake up at the end of the year and be like, I'm making, $60,000, $70,000 less than I did last year. And they don't know why. And so we really looked at the vendor management, the expense management, because to me, organic growth is when you can grow the top line and the bottom line. And on the Fortune side, we were really good at growing the top line. We know how to do that in our sleep, but we weren't always able to manage every single contract that our clients were entering into. And that essentially would eat at that profitability. And then human resource management. I mean, that's definitely something that plagues, I think, all small businesses today is.
Yeah, we hear that every day.
Yeah, human beings are the best part of our business, but they also can be a real challenge. And so being able to have the support and the tools and different things that you're never going to be completely shielded from human behavior, but you should be in a good place to utilize the human beings to use their assets to bring to your business more, and then be able to have the skill set to know when it's not working and be able to, get rid of them faster if need be. So what do they say? Slow to hire, quick to fire.
That's right.
We support that and just making sure, again, getting back into human beings and understanding what they really need out of it. That narcissism comes back and it's all about us sometimes. And we got to stop and say, hey, we're creating an ecosystem for everybody to thrive in.
So when you look at that meeting and you had 100 ideas and you just listed 3 very impactful areas that you knew you could put some service offerings out there that help in that, how did you kind of sort through the ones that, because you probably instinctively wanted to help on everything you could, but you knew that if you focused on every one, you probably wouldn't be as effective. So how did you kind of pull down to the most impactful ones, so like the 3 you just mentioned?
Really, we went to what was going to be the biggest bang for the buck, what was going to have the impact. I think as business owners, as CEOs, one of a great skill set for you to have is to be able to look at a list of 100 and say, what are the 2-3 things that may eliminate 20 other things. And that's really what it boiled down to, is that if we had better insurance relationships or the ability to evaluate that probably crossed off 7 or 8 other issues that was stemming from it. So being able to actually look at the core issue there, not just the systemic issues that came about from it. And when we really boiled it down, if people were using really good partners and had great vendors, it wasn't leading to all these other issues that they were having from that. So I think that's really important as a CEO when your team comes to you and says, we have all of these things going on and we have all these things to do, really focus on the ones that actually impact all the others.
That's good. Jen, what at the end of the day, right? You get through your day. I mean, what fires you up the most? Like you get through it, your head's hurt and you've been on meetings all day. What's like that aha moment? It's like, man, that was fun. Like what fires you up about doing what you're doing?
I think it's the feedback and it's the success stories that we get to hear. It's and it doesn't have to be the big wins, right? It's all the little wins along the way that lead them to their giant victory at the end. But it could be anything from a doctor just trying something new and had a successful procedure and calling me up and saying, hey, look at this case that I did, or hey, we got our first patient from this type of marketing event, or hey, we finally found a steady hygienist after 3 years of looking, or it just, those things that they once came to me saying wasn't possible, and now they're living it and living their reality is what their possibility was, however long ago we started together. That's really the amazing part. I mean, I think while human beings can be some of the most challenging parts of our business, they absolutely can be the most amazing part as well. And so seeing those transformations in human beings, that to me juices me. And the breakthroughs that people wake up and realize that they are in choice and that they've got the power to create the life that they really want, versus living by, social standards or their beliefs about how they grew up. Anything's possible. And I truly believe that. And I love when other people can have that same elevation.
So when you think through your impact, if it was just Jen, you would be limited. And, we know and we've seen a lot of your team members, and every one of them is top shelf. I mean, just an amazing representation of Fortune and what it stands for. So how did you build that team? How do you build a team that, kind of cares for the banner of your culture or your morals or your values or whatever you want to call them, and has that impact where they can experience those aha moments?
Well, it started way before me, and it was, really a group of people that came together again with the same core values and the same set of passion and integrity that they wanted to show forth. And when you've got that together, it truly is an unstoppable energy that it multiplies. And those people found more people that were like them, and it's continued to grow. And we have 150 executive coaches across the country now. And when, people don't believe me until they actually witness our annual meetings when we all get together, that energy is unlike anything else I have ever experienced in my life. And the only thing I can think of is that they just truly are all so committed to the same thing. They're all so committed to helping people. And, our journey as executive coaches is a very selfless one. We have to put our clients' needs in front of our needs. We're supporting them in every way, shape, or form. And that when you've got those group of people that I do believe they are the best of the best people inside and out, just a magic happens. And so I can't blame that. I can absolutely not take credit for that. But I definitely want to be a part of that journey. And I continue to pursue great people to join the organization. And I think when you get to some point, people find you, right? When you're that in tuned and you're that in alignment with what you are meant to be doing, people cross our paths all the time, and we get to work together.
So what are those things though that you're looking for, let's say in the coaches? Because I mean, what I'm hearing, coaches can be coached, right? To come in, understand how you guys do it. You said your father too.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I don't know anything about dentistry. So what are you looking for in those individuals that come on your team, right? And what character traits do they have to have that fire within, all that fun stuff? Like what is it that you're looking for?
Yeah. So, I mean, they got to be passionate about people. They got to be passionate about business. I think 10 years ago, if you had asked me who I'd be looking for, I would have probably gave you some generic standpoint of, if they have dental experience, that's great. We'll give them all the other things. And now, honestly, the dental is the easiest one to train, because it's not that complicated as far as the dental business, but they've got to have the knack for people. They've got to have just this passion and fire in their belly for growth. That's huge. They've got to walk their talk. So Fortune is what we call a lifestyle company. And there is no, I put on my Fortune hat and I take my Fortune hat off, or, I'm a Fortune coach now, and then at home, I'm not. There's no separation. And if we say something, we do it. And if we do it, we teach it. And that's really important, that our coaches are able to walk their talk. And we can't just tell our clients to do something or be something and not willing to do or be it ourselves. And then, just very empathetic individuals also, to be a coach and to be able to listen to somebody truly with the intent of truly understanding them and wanting to help. It's a rarity to find in a lot of ways. So finding somebody that's got a lot of these soft skills that I know a lot of the great business books lately have been talking about. And I think they've all got it right. And they're honing in on it's just the power of these people and the mindsets that they have. I think, positive outlook and being optimistic, and it's all a choice. And we underestimate those choices and how they all link together.
Yeah, it seems like it's easier to teach or harder to teach the soft skills, but easier to teach the hard
Yeah,
skills, in my opinion.
Yeah, and,
absolutely.
and we definitely see that with the team you've assembled. So let's kind of now start to wrap this up, Jen. And I always like to ask this question because the journey is often messy, right, and complicated, and there's good times and bads. It's not all up and to the right in any business. What do you look back, if anything, and say, man, if I could do that over, if I could hit the reset button, or man, I really screwed that up. What comes to mind?
It's a good question because I'm a strong believer in everything happens for a reason. So I don't usually Monday quarterback, how I can go backwards and redo things. But if it was one thing that I'd say I would like to do more of as I go forward is lean in more to my intuition. I think there's that voice, not the negative voice that talks you out of things, but the voice of, when you feel in your gut that something's either not right or something is going well and you should lean more into that. I think we question that a lot more than we should. And as I've expanded in my roles, I've realized that voice is getting more and more confident. And what I would say to any other, entrepreneur is just, do not silence that voice, that sense that you have about certain things, because more often or not, it is right. And that's where I wish I would have, if I were to go back, it would just be to pay a little bit closer attention to that, because I think it would have saved me a lot of other heartburn elsewhere.
I'm the same way. I think everything happens for a reason, but that's a great answer. I'm going to cheat here on the end, Bill. I'm going to ask one, but I'm going to squeeze one in right before. I'm going to ask them both at the same time. So I've got to ask, you got little kiddos, right?
Yep.
What are those dinner conversations looking like when you going back when you were a kid? Have you started that yet? If not, when? And then second of all, you work with dental practice owners every day, that are maybe doing, starting a new practice or whatever. What advice would you have out there for somebody today that is just starting a business right now? Doesn't have to be a dental practice owner, but any kind of business. What advice do you have?
Yeah. Well, definitely. I've got two young boys, and my oldest he'll be 10 in a couple of weeks, and so elementary school, fourth grade. It's real, these conversations that we're having, and it takes me back to when I was that age and learning these tools, and so we definitely have very spirited conversations, and it's just asking great questions, right? I think kids love to talk. You just got to ask the right questions. And so our dinner time always starts with, what was your favorite part of the day? Just to get to know what was good about the day. But a lot of parents will say, how was your day? And it's like, fine.
Sure.
And but if you really pause and ask a different question, it causes a different response. But he's a 10-year-old boy that loves sports, and we're working on sportsmanship. And so asking better questions of, what does this mean to you? What's great about this is a powerful question that I was asked. One that I remember as a kid, I think all kids say, I don't know, all the time, right? I don't know. And so my dad would always answer back, and he said, well, what if you did know? And it's one of those that would just cause us, like, me and my brother would get so angry. If we did know, we'd tell you. I find myself asking the same question of my son is, when they say, I don't know. So it trains you very quickly to stop saying, I don't know, and start to actually, build a different repertoire. And then to your other question, what I would tell entrepreneurs, I think, if you're starting a business, it's kind of like starting a family with kids, is that you really got to be in the right mindset that, hey, this is this is a long-term thing. This is something that I love. And do something that you are just so passionate about, because I think everybody underestimates how much time, energy, resources it takes to start a business. And if you're going to devote all of that time, energy, and resources to it, it's got to be something that you truly do love. And I look at that with my kids. I mean, there's no limit to what I'm willing to invest in them. And your business has to be similar, is that, you have no limits to what you're willing to invest to make it successful. And, I've never been one to do like a get rich quick scheme, or a plump and dump where I'm going to, put something together and make quick cash. I've never been lucky enough to find that, or smart enough, I guess. And so anything that I do, I've got to look at the long haul and the long term. And I think with all of our dental clients, healthcare clients, we think the same way, is that they're doing something that they're very passionate about. It's something that they're willing to do for decades, not just, the flavor of the month, scheme that they're going to do for a couple months.
Yeah. I love it. What do they say? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so that's 100% spot on. Well, Jen, I appreciate you sitting down and talking to us two knuckleheads. I mean, this has been a blast. You can tell you've got a ton of experience. Bill, I guarantee, let's have Jen back on in another 6 months here. I think she'll have another idea, maybe another company spun up, and another business plan. And to be honest, solving somebody else's issues is what she'll be doing. But Jen, we appreciate you. And thank you for coming on here. For sure.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. This was a blast. And I really, really appreciate all the work that you guys are doing for our mutual industry and doing good things. So thank you.
Love it. Thanks, Jen.